Hi, I'm Carina. I'm, half of Durham Coffee, and this is Bernhard, my dad.
Hello.
The other half of Durham Coffee, I suppose. It's just the two of us, father-daughter team, which is nice. How we got into coffee. Wow.
I could start a bit about opening the cafe.
Yeah.
What I told you earlier, basically. Or let's say 20 years ago when we moved here, coffee was a bit in the northeast. Good coffee was rare to get by, really. So it was all chains here. And I missed the nice sit-down atmosphere of enjoying a good cup of coffee. So when you went to a coffee shop here, it was canteen-like. So sitting... getting a coffee like on a counter and sitting down and what's that? I'm not in a canteen at the university or somewhere else in a factory. That's not a nice experience to sit down and enjoy coffee time with friends. So eventually, nudged by my daughter, I said, Dad, why don't you open a cafe? And I'm from Vienna originally, so the Austrian-German culture is very important to me for a nice, good black coffee, good cake and so on. So I opened my own cafe. Started a speciality coffee journey, hooking up with a roaster from North Yorkshire back then. Opened the cafe, baked the cakes, baked bread, trained as a barista, did everything ourselves, and had just a lovely time.
Absolutely.
Educating people when we started doing coffee courses at the cafe already, so home brewing courses to educate people what's good coffee. Or what's responsibly sourced coffee as well. It's not just about the price tag as such, but actually where it comes from, direct trade was important to us.
And very much also highlighting V60 and filter coffee, because that, again, from our Austrian-German heritage, was like the way to drink coffee. Or
so it was
a lot bigger.
Lovely, actually, absolutely.
It really was.
So we had a V60 station with three pots underneath. We had then
different
at that
beans.
time we bought into different grinders as well, small Vario home grinders, so people could actually choose and on the menu if they want an Indian coffee. Back then we had
Costa Rican, we had a Kenyan, we swapped them around.
We swapped them so people could choose and on the
always
menu.
And always a good decaf as well. That was important.
So that was lovely.
Yeah.
And overall, I think we didn't have, it's no statistic, but I think more people actually then bought a black V60 coffee rather than an espresso-based coffee, because they said, oh wow, that's nice, and I don't need milk and sugar. That's your story.
that was
Carina mostly did
journey,
front of house then. She was the main barista and always trying to nudge people, you tell.
I guess so many people are just used to an Americano if they want a black coffee. Sure. And if you don't have as nice a coffee, or potentially, in our eyes, too dark a roast, it comes across a lot more bitter, and people automatically are used to, milk, sugar, it's what I need to kind of make it drinkable. So whenever somebody was like, okay, I've not had a pot of coffee before, I'll order a pot of coffee, because we serve these in this nice little kind of 3-portioned cups.
Exactly, we're on video here. We had those lovely nice pots of coffee. That's how you would do it maybe in Romania too, yes, in Germany also, a pot of coffee, and then obviously with your cup served, and you can enjoy that black or slash of milk if you want.
But yeah, so a lot of people would order a pot of coffee and I'd always ask, would you like milk? And if they said yes, I said, okay, I'll bring you some, but do me a favour, just try it black first, see what you think. And I would say 90% of people were like, oh, do you know what, Carina, actually that's really nice, I don't need the milk. And it was they were so not used to having a freshly hand-poured, coffee brewed freshly for them, because again it's even different to ordering a filter coffee which has been batch brewed on a hot plate, more American diner style, which maybe some cafes would have, and at the time when we started, I don't think there really was many places in the northeast that would have done that. Now it's obviously it's a lot more common, which is nice to see, or at least kind of batch brewers are used in some more cafes, but that was always a fun journey for me, kind of trying to encourage people to, really just try it first. As Dad mentioned, we already previously ran courses at the cafe. They were they were a bit simpler, concentrated just on kind of a bit of your your V60 brewing and showing people how to get a good brew at home. But then since we now have the roastery and the premises here, we've expanded on our range of courses where we've got a specific barista course. So that looks just at the espresso machine. And then we've got our homebrew course, which then looks at all kind of main homebrewing methods. So your mocha pot, your AeroPress, your cafetiere, and your V60. And then we've also recently released a how to start your own coffee shop course, which to us, again, I think education is a thing we love doing. I mean, and that's something we've realised perhaps Dad did a course like that before he started the cafe. And I think we've realised a lot of people could probably do with that help. There's a lot of things when we sometimes, you get a new client and you realise, they've never thought about that. And starting a new business can be overwhelming. There's a lot that comes with it, which you sometimes don't even think, think of. And we'd like to be able to help people have the best setup and get out there on the right foot, so to speak. And then we're in the process now of soon releasing a roasting experience course, which will be a bit more of a casual look on kind of the roasting process. So all our courses have like a basic coffee introduction at the beginning, to teach people a bit more about where coffee comes from and mentions roasting a little bit and stuff like that. Well, I studied art at uni, so that would be my kind of, I suppose, hobby, although I don't get as much done as I'd like to. But where I can, I try and bring it into work a little bit, don't I? So that's my hobby. So little things like that.
Music was always part of my life. I mean, of yours too, actually. Carina sang in some lovely choirs. So did I. Lots of years ago. I'm a hobby violinist, but I hardly play at all these days. Unfortunately, it's just too tired.
Time, yeah.
But anyway, I grew up with classical music very much, so I still love going to, if there's time in the evenings, to concerts, which is nice.
Lifestyle. It's a lot more flexible, offers a better work-life balance, put it that way. No, it is. I mean, if we would compare to running a cafe in the hospitality where you work flat out, also the weekends mainly is the best, so you can't really, if you're working in a cafe, in the business, hardly a day off, so a couple of years ago, so that's now obviously nobody expects you to roast coffee on Saturday, Sunday, so that's kind of, as a producer, manufacturer, so you can take weekends off without any bad feelings, so to speak. But you can be quite flexible about that as well, obviously, which is great. You can work on the weekend and then take a Monday, Tuesday off if whatever your model allows it. That as long as you can meet the demands of your customers. The hardship for me is this connection with potential clients, wholesalers, getting in there and educating people. That's fun, but also really hard, kind of to change the scene more and more. To better coffee, to caring about the supply chain, really. Just because we're passionate doesn't mean everybody else has the same stance.
For us as a micro roaster, it's still hard to get bigger clients on board because they're usually tied in, or they have in a procurement department, so they don't even look at local roasters. They have a big wholesaler who does it for the whole, let's say, hotel or whatever. So they think, but come on, you want to be a bit more. So that's a tricky bit to get information out there for bigger clients or chains or restaurants who are tied in to care a bit more about specialty grade coffee, supply chains, and not just whoever wholesales commercial coffee for the cheapest price.
So we roast on an AMR, which stands for Air Motion Roaster. We're one of the first in the UK to roast on a 12 kilo. There's only a handful of other roasters in the UK with these machines. And we're now officially the representatives for the Air Motion Roasters in the UK as well. So that's another side of the business we're expanding into in terms of showcasing and teaching people how how to use them.
So we've got, they come in, that's the 3 kilo, the baby one. Then there's also a 6 kilo which we don't have, and then that's the 12 kilo one. Yeah. So the 3 kilo one can run also on, they have a single phase model. As you see, they don't need too much space. It works better always on 3 phase for the 3 because you have more energy input. The big 12 kilo roaster, which is quite nice, and that's this is ideal because it's lots of power. So in terms of roast profiles, you can come up with all sorts of different heat inputs and development times. The heat elements sit at the bottom, and they're kind of through the blower always moved around. You saw in the video. The cyclone extracts the hot air, the chaff that comes out, all the impurities go straight out, and so it keeps it nice and clean, the whole roast. It's gentler as in a drum, but I guess for lots of ropers that's again personal preference in a bit, but at the same time not many have actually experience with that. I'm one of the first here in the UK to use it. So, but it's nice to be energy efficient.
Loosely speaking, it's because I think we touched on it earlier. We drink different coffees different times a day. Sometimes it depends what you've eaten. You know, like now I'm loving our charity coffee as a cold brew, and 20% of each bag sold we donate to a local charity. So, and with each charity coffee, we kind of change who the recipient is. Dad, on the other hand, for breakfast would prefer one of our bolder roasts, whereas I prefer a lighter roast. But then sometimes you're like, no, actually, yeah. So it depends what you're drinking, depends how you're drinking it, depends on the time of day, and your mood. We're about to launch a new permanent addition to our heritage collection. I love the idea behind the story. So it's a woman-grown coffee, something we don't represent enough yet, and half of the team being a woman.
Absolutely.
Is definitely something we want to start representing a bit more as well. And it's a Guatemalan coffee called, the project name is La Morena, and it's a collective of about 22 farmers.
Female farmers,
yes, coming together to create this coffee, and from every bag of the coffee sold, money goes back into kind of the education side of things and making sure females get the education to run their own coffee businesses in Guatemala, which is, I mean, coffee in general is still such a male-driven, generally speaking, industry. So it's important to us that gets out there. So we just love the story behind that and wanted to support that. The woman we ended up going with was Rachel Mary Parsons, who is an engineer from Tyneside, and she was very much kind of pro-education for females, or education into technical colleges as well, regardless of gender and things like that. So we thought she was very fitting in line with what La Morena stood for, and kind of educating women and getting them into business. We work with a green bean supplier, and that's our direct trade. From them we get all the photos and the stories of their visits to the farms. So to us that's very important, that we know, and we have contact with them, and they can tell us, oh yeah, we've been there, we've seen it, it's not a long line of, to us that is still kind of direct trade, and I think a lot of people in the coffee industry would agree with that, especially for smaller micro roasters. Yes, unless you're a bigger operation, you can't go out yourself, but you have that reliable green bean supplier who does that. And it's also the whole issue then of exporting or importing. Either the small coffee farm or you as a roaster has to be one or the other if you want that absolute direct from them, which often isn't viable. So you need a green bean supplier then to do that. For you, I suppose.
That's its own industry, the logistics, with its own perks and difficulties. Because that's even the El Salvador farmer said that you can't just, from most countries you can't just ship. You can't, it depends on politics, on policies, on regulations. So they, even if you wanted to, as a cooperative, wherever you grow your coffee, you can't just, you need the logistics in place, and either you're big enough to do it, or you need a trustworthy green bean supplier who does all that for you and for the roaster. It's really important that you buy into the quality, because it helps us, the supply, it helps the coffee farmer. They can actually build a sustainable business, and they look after the soil, biodiversity, and so it helps the whole industry.